Hello, welcome back. This is Mr. Excalibur. My name is Arthur, and today we are looking at the Ronin Katana Dojo Pro number 14. This is actually their model that has a slightly longer blade, which is, as you guys have seen in videos before now, is one of its appeal to me. Just some initial information about this. I've been wanting to do a review of Ronin Katana's Dojo Pro series for a while. What we're going to be doing here is, first of all, of course, looking at the unboxing. And then after that, there were two different videos that were published by Matthew Jensen that he did on this particular sword, and just kind of looking at some of the things that he did with it, some highlights from those videos. He did some pretty extensive testing. In fact, he actually did destructive testing on it, so we're going to take a look at that here in just a minute. Alright, and so we're going to take a look at that unboxing footage, and then some highlights. I'm going to be commenting kind of along the way with some of Matthew Jensen's footage. So here we go with that footage. When I first got this, I had actually ordered two different items from Ronin Katana. You've actually seen the, if you've been following along on the channel, the review that just came out before this was the Euro model number 13, which is their Crusader model. So that's what the double wide box. But here is the number 14, the Dojo Pro, the Katana, and again, very simple boxing. It is kind of nice that some of these companies, when they introduce the packing material, there isn't a lot of fancy, you know, decals or anything like that, or, you know, it doesn't necessarily come in a fancy presentation box. It lets you know that what you're buying is the katana and not a fancy presentation box, which in the past I've been a little bit leery about. One of the first things that first struck me when I took this sword out of its box and out of its scabbard was just how solid it is. It shouldn't come as that much of a surprise. That's what the Dojo Pro series from RK is known for. They are known for that really solid build. But at the same time, it was also very well balanced. I mean, that's something you're going to hear over and over again. Sharp, yep, it was sharp right out of the box. I was just actually reading on Sword Buyer's Guide, who I actually bought this through, about one of the common complaints is that it often comes with this very thick, viscous material. This one didn't. Here we go, the whole paper test. Yep, shaves it, just, you know, just filleting it. It doesn't come overly sharp, and you know what? You don't necessarily want it overly sharp. You know, I know there's some people out there that say that they want these katanas, they want them literally razor sharp. An interesting thing about that term, on Cult of Athena's website, they give you kind of a vocabulary lesson on what the different sharpness levels there are. And at the very bottom of the list, they have a level that says razor sharp. It's one they never use. It doesn't exist. All right, here's some up close about just some of the furniture and the look of the sword. As you guys can see, it has that, you know, very utilitarian polish. It does not have a Hummel line. It doesn't need one. It's not differentially tempered. It also gives you that very immediate impression that this is a sword that's going to be very good for practice. And I've noticed with a lot of models that have this kind of polish, that's what you're getting. These are the, you know, matte finish iron fittings that come on the sword. here are some looks at the saya, which are really nice. The black you see right around the throat, the opening of the saya, is actually real horn. This is kind of unusual for a sword at this price point. The cap, not horn that I know of. The plug where the sageo cord is tied to on the saya is also horn. The sword fit very well into the saya. It had a nice tight fit. There was no blade rattle. All of the fittings around the tsuka, the handle, were also very tight. Matt Jensen actually recorded 2 different videos for this sword, for this particular model from the Dojo Pro series. He really enjoyed it. His opinion of them was that he really enjoyed their durability. He enjoyed how sharp they came, although in both of these videos, which these are all this kind of a mishmash of clips from, he does concede the fact that he did get his second hand and that it had been sharpened even more. But that does leave credence to the fact that these 1060 blades, if you want them even more sharp than how they came out of the box, they will hold that edge. One of the things that he does here in this review is he, at the end of each one of these different levels of testing, bottles, roll of newspaper, wood pegs, is he cuts paper with it. Now I cut that out because I didn't really want to show it again. He also shows, you know, how tight it is. At this point he's doing the destructive test, and he really is just trying to just see what this thing is going to take. And I gotta hand it to him because he does it so well so that we don't. So I really appreciate the fact that he's doing this, and we the buyers don't have to. Another thing that I really have to say is that this is a testament to something that is pretty widely known out there on the internet, and that is just how tough these 1060 blades that Ronin Katana has been making. Now at this point, like I said, he really is trying to break it. He's got another broken sword that he's whacking it against, and just kind of showing what it's going to take. And now at this point, any sword, I don't care what kind of metal you're using, it's going to ding, it's going to scratch. So, you know, this is not something that's really earth-shattering. Now at this point in his video, he literally is trying to break it, and he's just beating it with a metal pipe, and there it goes. And here it goes. You know, he is smacking this thing like crazy. So, and you know, wang, bang, bang, and then, you know, one more whack here, I think, and that does it. And no, not that one. And bling! Yeah, there it goes. And he shows basically that it breaks right at the point where he'd been chewing at it the most. We kind of transition here into a pretty decent sized clip from one of his reviews where he kind of goes over the aesthetics of the sword. And even though this is, you know, a sword that is meant for someone who is practicing, whether it be in their backyard or something that a practitioner is taking into the dojo who doesn't necessarily want to spend a great deal of money, but that is, you know, very serviceable. The aesthetics actually I like. You know, here again is a closer look at the horn that is around the opening of the saya, the very hourglass shape of the tsuka. I liked the sageo cord that they put with it. Of course, the saya plug there holding the sageo cord is made of horn, at least that's what the advertisements say. The silk around the handle is really comfortable. I'm going to get into a little bit more here during the cutting tests. Now what this is showing, though, when he focuses on the blade, is he is showing how it has been it has been sharpened. The model he is showing has been sharpened. I, on the other hand, am kind of emphasizing looking on this as how they are right out of the box. Some nice close-up pictures here of the handle, the suka, the tsuba. The blades, you guys can see, again, those are those pictures that I was talking about, where you can see that whoever had it before him really did quite a bit of sharpening on it. And I think he makes some funny comment about it being as sharp as a laser sword. I'm not sure it was that sharp, but you know, that certainly was his impression. So thank you, Matt, for doing a great job, and appreciate you letting me use this footage. My turn, using the Dojo Pro model number 14. This is their 30-inch blade. Just getting it out here, seeing how it moves. Really enjoyed this sword, how it moves. I know usually in my videos, at least up until this point, you've seen me use these swords, whether they be Japanese or the European models, with gloves, and I just wanted to demonstrate here just how comfortable this was versus some of the other swords which typically have the cheaper cotton wrap. The cotton wrap swords, what I tend to find is that they're a little rougher on the hands, and not quite as comfy. This silk that they put on the this Dojo Pro Series model really was quite comfortable, to the point where I didn't need gloves. The carnage of what used to be a bunch of plastic balls from sword tests gone by. Again, here just some practicing, just me swinging this thing around and really getting a feel for it. One of the nice things about these slightly heavier katanas is that you really get a sense of where the blade is. For those of you who are serious practitioners looking for something not quite so weighty, that is a criticism of some of the Dojo Pro series, is that they're very weighty blades. I didn't find that so. I actually really enjoyed having that weight, but at the same time, it's the result of a well-engineered sword. Something that really does swing around in the hands despite its weight. Cutting with this thing was just fun, and watching the water balls go splash was really fun here. And that first one, I could really tell how sharp it was. I just pleated it in two different directions and it went. Now, mind you, milk bottles in particular are a rather thin plastic. They're a gallon of water, which means they've got a lot of weight to them, and that's a swing and a miss. And yeah, I was trying to see if I could get one with some that was empty to see if it cut. Well, that one wasn't. It was a little bit too light. Now again, I think at one point I do hit one of my my sawhorses here. I tend to do that. I gotta find something that's a little bit higher, because I'm 6'4" here, and these sawhorses are barely 3 feet off the ground, and I always find myself chopping into them, or at least one of them is pretty bad shape. But this was really fun, just kind of swinging this thing around and cutting through these. So that was an empty one, and you can see there how it just shaved the top right off. I tried taking another whack at it just to see if I can do it, but you can see that part that flow up. Now, that was an empty bottle. Now, usually those things are so light that you can't do that, but this sword definitely had the weight and sharpness enough to it that it actually would cut through it, so it gives you an idea of how sharp these things are right out of the box. Now, needless to say that going through this, there wasn't any edge rolling, there really wasn't any damage to the blade when I was cutting through this stuff. None of this was really much of a challenge to it. It was more, quite honestly, me just having fun with it. let's just call what it is what it is. It really was just me kind of having fun. Now, of course, this one always is fun putting on the top of this ladder, because then I can, fillet this thing as it goes on. And here I'm just whittling this thing down to size. When you can get like 6 or 7 cuts out of one water bottle, you really get your money's worth. And so that was the water bottles. On to the big TV box. And you just kind of wind up here and, take a nice big swing at this thing. And bang. Make sure the thing's stayed. No, I wasn't sawing it more into it. Wanted to put it in here. Now, the interesting thing about these boxes is they've been sitting out in the rain for a while, and then it got really warm. So this cardboard baked, and it actually got a lot harder. And yet, look how far this thing plowed into it. It really was impressive. The sharpness in combination with the heavier blade, man. But at the end of the day, as with all of these swords that we've looked at least so far, it is high carbon steel, which means it rusts, ladies and gentlemen, and it rusts badly if you do not take care of it. Plowing it through water and then just putting it back in the scabbard is a bad thing. So please make sure you lubricate your sword, then put it away. Then you can enjoy it for the next time.
So, like we saw in the cutting videos, this thing was a lot of fun to cut with. Let's take a look at it. Now, the Dojo Pro series, and I can see definitely with this example, the number 14, is their demon-themed sword. Of course, they got the red saya to go along with that. This is definitely made to, compete with other what are called backyard cutters. That's a term I've recently been introduced to. Or the more, utilitarian look. You don't have a home line. This is a through tempered blade where it's not differentially treated. It's made to be, the term beater is something that is out there, and I think that kind of cheapens some of these really nice katanas that are good for practice, that are good for, just someone who wants to go outside and, really whack away at things and not spend a lot of money and still has something that looks, very nice. I admit there is a certain allure to that very kind of basic grind pattern along the blade. It's very elegant in my opinion. It actually is kind of nice to look at. Someone recently commented as far as these kinds of swords as not being very pretty. Well, and beauty and all that kind of thing is in the eye of the beholder. So anyway, like I said, this is definitely meant to, be in competition with swords like the Dragon King series, which I'm actually going to do a compare and contrast video later on with. It is meant to compete with things like the Raptor series. Although the Raptor, we have to remember, it fits into what's called the heavy cutter, or some people often refer to them as kind of overbuilt. That kind of streams into the same category as the cold steel offering in the katana department. I don't think Ronin, the Ronin Dojo Pro series, quite fits that bill, but it definitely does fit the backyard cutter description. I have to say that as you guys saw in the cutting video, this is the first katana I've ever swung around without any gloves. This is a silk wrap Ito, which really was really comfortable in the hand. I know you've heard that now a couple times, but I can't overemphasize that enough. And if that's a big selling point for some people, then, well, there you go. But I thought that was really, really nice. As far as, all the fittings and everything, well, everything stayed nice and, nice tight fittings, nothing loosened up. The Ito wrap was nice and tight, all those typical things we talk about when we talk about katanas. The Kashina and Fushi are, very basic, but I kind of like them. They've got this kind of matte finish iron look to them. From what I understand, the Tsuba is actually blackened or lacquered brass. And of course, all the other fittings are exactly where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to look and all that kind of good stuff. But one of the things that I really liked about it was, like a lot of these backyard cutters, it had a little bit more weight to it. However, that weight was offset by the fact that you've got this nice longer handle, and it was just, I think it's a very nicely engineered sword for being a slightly longer blade. And not only this, but all of Ronin Katana's Dojo Pro series uses what's called 1060 steel. 1060 steel is more of a mid-range, high carbon steel. There are certainly those that are lower, and there are certainly those that are higher in carbon, and this is of course just within the 10 series. Let me read off a few things that I looked up about 1060 high carbon steel. Katana made with the steel are popular among sword making community because properly heat treated becomes very resilient. Now Ronin Katana has through hardness. This is not differentially hardened, and primarily it's because it's not a very high carbon steel, and therefore differentially hardening is not necessary. It's already has a high enough carbon to where it's going to have very good edge retention, but low enough to where you don't need to temper it so much to give it some kind of shock absorber. That's kind of that's the purpose for differentially treating. You give a hard edge and a soft spine. The spine acts as a shock absorber. Well, this kind of steel already has a I guess you could say in this part of the conversation, a lower carbon content to give it that shock absorbent quality. So 1060 is known as a very durable steel, and you guys saw in the clip from Matt Jensen, it took a whole lot for him to actually break this sword made of this steel. It's exactly the same model that he had. Let's read a little bit more about it. It's quite tough. It can keep an edge fairly well. 1060 has the lowest practical carbon content of 60%. Manganese is added to prevent the blade from rusting. It is not stainless though, and still needs to be oiled and maintained regularly. Offers a good compromise between hardness and pliability. So that's a little bit about the 1060 steel that they use. 1060 also is some of the more cheaper high carbon steel, and therefore that's one of the things that they've done in order to keep some of the price a little bit lower. That's not to say this is as cheap as in bad. Cheap is just it's a lower price point. So my overall impression of the Ronin Katana was that the number 14 was that it was a pleasure to swing around. I can't remember having more control over a sword than I did when swinging this around, and its comfort in the hand. And right out of the box, it was striking because of its kind of black on black look. The aesthetics were, minimalist. We could expect that with a sword, not only at this price point, but also in this market. This whole kind of practice backyard cutter. I think when I was looking at the description of Dojo Pro on Ronin Katana's website, they call these, a workhorse. These are meant to, really work a lot with in a dojo or in a backyard environment. And so if you are in the market for something along those lines, this particular model from Ronin Katana, their Dojo Pro series, number 14, if you're interested in something with a little bit more length to it, this is definitely one to consider and check out. I hope this has been informative for you. I've definitely enjoyed it. We finally got to take a look at a Ronin Katana Dojo Pro series model, and comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys later. Bye for now.